Chapter 13. Abel spent most of January and February and part of March indoors. In January there was a great blizzard. The snow descended from the bleary sky in thick, heavy curtains. Through a long night, curled up in his bed, Abel listened despondently to the howling and yowling, the lashing and whistling of the wind. His log was buried deep, and though a dim light penetrated the snow, almost none got in through the tightly shuttered windows. Even by day he had to probe his way around. Fortunately, some air filtered through the tightly packed crystals. Hardly knowing day from night, Abel slept and kept no schedule, and the days came and left uncounted. His chief occupation when awake was finding his food in the groping dark of his storerooms and eating it, which was a sort of tiresome ritual, a solemn munching. Otherwise he yawned. Oh, how he yawned. Turned over time and again, thrashed around, even so much scratch over and over, pushed the shells of acorns, hickory nuts, and sunflower seeds out of his way, and thought of nothing. Meanwhile, the sun and occasional thaws kept lowering the level of the snow, so that eventually Abel had the thrill of seeing the light that had long been denied him slice through the edge of a wind-struck shutter. He woke up one day, and there was. Things were visible. "Abel!" he shouted. "Do you hear me? I can see!" He flung the shutter open. How beautiful everything looked after the prolonged darkness. How unspeakably beautiful even the shells on the floor, how vividly actual and therefore marvelous. Abel opened his doorway and let the light flood in. The day seemed confident of its own splendor. The icicles hanging in the open entrance glittered. One was as big as Abel himself. He ate and drank cold water from a clay pot. Then he shoved the great accumulation of shells out of his house and went to stand before Amanda's statue, which was chest deep in snow. "Dear heart, I love you," he exclaimed. "What a lovely day. It's February, isn't it? I need to be moving." He flexed his arms, bent backward and forward, and felt foolish before his wife. He didn't know what to say. He put on his snowshoes, got a shovel and spear, and went to read his book. Captain Burin had been wounded, he remembered. Was he going to live or not? He was going to live. His wounds were healing. Thank God, and spring was coming. The talk of spring filled Abel with unbearable longing. How deeply one felt when alone. It was February, as Abel had surmised, and now winter really took hold. January had been only the prelude. Abel came in from his book one afternoon, unable to keep his body from shaking. His teeth chattered and clacked, and nothing would make his frigid shuddering stop. His snout ran, his eyes teared and grew dim, his head pounded and pained. It was a time when even the most stalwart of mice would wish to be an infant again in his mother's warm embrace. He tottered about, shivering, and stuffed every open chink as well as he could with his palsied paws until no light came through anywhere. The only source of warmth was his own heat-hungry body. How wonderful a fire would be, but if he made one, he realized, he could burn himself out of his home or anyway use up the oxygen. He donned his entire wardrobe, got all his mats together, all the paper he had torn from the novel, whatever milkweed fluff he could find in his storerooms, and, half sitting, half reclining against a wall, he quilted himself all around with these paddings and buried his face in Amanda's scarf. Gradually his shivering subsided and his tired muscles relaxed. He tucked his head under his coverings, and his breath helped warm his body. Thus began another long month of sad sequestration inside the log. Whenever Abel was convinced it couldn't get any colder, it still got colder. The wind tore wildly around the world, whipping up the snow in mountainous drifts, breaking frozen branches off trees, sending icicles clattering to the glassy ground. Abel listened, and it lasted so long he stopped hearing it, but still it went on. He was sick. He was weak. Merely to turn over took great effort. He was wretched. One day he found himself wondering with dull resentment why Amanda hadn't tied her scarf on better so that he wouldn't have had to chase it out of the cave. If she were less dreamy, more attentive to reality, if she had tied her scarf on tighter, he would now this moment be at home, wearing his velvet jacket and satin-lined pantaloons, ensconced in an easy chair among plump pillows, reading a good book, or perhaps merely looking out his window at the snow. There'd be a fire in the fireplace, lentil soup with an onion in it, simmering on the stove. Amanda would be at her escritoire correcting a poem, or better still, she'd be in his lap, covering him with warm kisses. The cold and the wind outside would only set off the indoor coziness. But he wasn't at home, nowhere near it. He thought of his loved ones, his faraway friends. Amanda was his mate, yes, and would always be. His parents, sisters, brothers, and friends would always be his parents, sisters, brothers, and friends, but his feeling for them all had become shadowy. How could he go on having warm, alive feelings for merely remembered beings? Living was more than remembering, imagining. He wanted the real Amanda at his side, and he tried to reach out to her. His messages, it seemed, could not travel through the icy air. He became somnolent in his cold cocoon. In his moments of dim-eyed wakefulness, he had no idea how much time had passed since he was last awake. Whether an hour, a day, or a week, he was cold, but he knew he was as warm as he could get. The water in his clay pot was frozen solid. His mind was frozen. It began to seem it had always been winter, and that there was nothing else, just a vague awareness. To make note of the fact, the universe was a dreary place asleep, cold all the way to infinity, and the wind was a separate thing, not part of the winter, but a lost, unloved soul, screaming and moaning and rushing about, looking for a place to rest and reckon up its woes. Somewhere out there in the night sky, and it could only be night, were the glittering stars, and among them his, the one he had always known. This star, his, millions of miles away, was yet closer than Amanda, because if he had the will and the strength to get up, uncover his window, and look out, he could see it. He knew, therefore, that it existed. But as for Amanda, father, mother, sister, brother, aunt, uncles, cousins, friends, and the rest of society and the animal kingdom, he had to believe that they were there, and it was hard to have this faith. As far as he really knew, he himself was the only lonely, living thing that existed in his coma of coldness. He was not so sure of that.